Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will dive into the world of online payment integration, specifically PayPal. So in this step-by-step tutorial, I will guide you through the integration of a PayPal payment solution within your Spring Boot and web applications. So whether you're building an e-commerce platform or any web application that requires online transactions and online payments, this video is a must-watch for you. So before we start, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join me for more and more videos. Also, don't forget to share this video with your friends to spread the knowledge more and more. Now, with no further ado, let's get started. First of all, and as always, let's start by creating a new Spring Boot project. So all you need to do is to go to the Spring Initializer website, which is start.spring.io. And then we will select Maven as project manager, and we will be using Java as a language, and then we will be using the most recent version, which is 3.0.5 at this time. And now let's go ahead and add our metadata. So this one I will call it Alibu, and then I will call it PayPal, and then it will be the description. It will be a demo project for PayPal integration or PayPal payment integration with Spring Boot. And then the package would be com.alibu.paypal, or let me call this one PayPal integration. Okay. And here I will call this one payment or PayPal. It's I will leave you the freedom to choose whatever you want. Of course, jar packaging and Java 17. So now let's go to the dependencies. So first of all, we need the Spring Web because we will be implementing a web application based on the MVC pattern. Also, since we want to implement also the web part within the same application, let's include Thymeleaf. And of course, our preferred dependency, which is Lombok. In this case, we won't need or we won't use a database because we will not store anything. It will be just to show you how you can integrate PayPal with a web application. And now that's it. Go ahead and click on generate and open the project using your preferred IDE. And for this case, we will be using IntelliJ. After creating the project, let's first of all have an overview over what we have generated. So first of all, we have this main class and test, and here where we will be putting and implementing all our Java classes. And then we have these resources where we can see this application properties, which is the configuration file. So first of all, I will just use the YAML representation because personally I prefer this representation. And then we see that we have a static and templates. So the templates folder is where we will be putting all the HTML files that we will need later on. And then we see that we have this PayPal integration application.java, which is our main class. So this is briefly the architecture or the structure of our project. Also, we can see here that we have our pom.xml with all the information that we provided. And here we see that we have all the dependencies like Thymeleaf, also Spring Start Web, and also Lombok. So now let's move on and add the required dependencies for PayPal. Now our project is ready to use. So first of all, and the first step we need to do is to add the PayPal dependencies. So here I will add a new dependency, and the artifact for this one is PayPal core. And then be careful about the group ID. It should be com.paypal.sdk. And at this time, the latest version is 1.7.2. So let's add this one. And we need also another dependency, which is the REST API SDK. So here it's called REST API SDK. And also it's from PayPal, and the version is 1.14.0 at this time. Then don't forget to click on this button right here to reload the Maven changes, or right click and then Maven and then reload changes or reload project. So this will help you, and this will allow you to download the dependency. Otherwise it will not be available in your application class path. So now let's move on to the configuration part. Now, the first step with the PayPal payment integration is to create a configuration file that will configure our PayPal or the API context for PayPal. So I will create first a class and I will move it to a package called config, and I will call the class PayPal config or configuration as you like. So since this one is a configuration, so I will add a configuration annotation, and then to configure PayPal, we will need 3 parameters or 3 values. So first of all, we will need a private string client ID. So this is the client ID that we need to get from the PayPal developer dashboard, and I will show you in the next step how to do that. And then we will need a private string client secret, and of course we will need the mode, private string mode, and I will explain this mode just in a few seconds. So first of all, this one, it will be a value. I will move it to the application properties later on so we can read it from there, and I will call it PayPal.clientID, client-id, and then I will call this one, I can duplicate this, and I will call this one client secret. And finally, I will call this one PayPal.mode, and we will move all these parameters to the application properties. Then we will need to provide a bean of type API context. So here I will need a public API context. And as you can see, this API context is from the package com.paypal.paste.rest. And let's call it API context. And this one, of course, as I mentioned, it should be of type bean. So we need to add the bean annotation. So simply we can return new API context. And this API context, it takes 3 parameters, which is the client ID, the client secret, and then the mode. So now we have our configuration. The next step, let's move these parameters right here to, or these values to the application.yaml. So in here, I will create an object PayPal, and then client-id equals, and here it will be client ID, the one we will generate just in a few moments. And then we have client secret, and the client secret will be also our client secret. And finally, we have the mode, and the mode is for now we will use Sandbox, because Sandbox is a way of using PayPal, but not in production mode. So we will not be performing real payment. We will have everything, the interface. We will have also a username, email, and so on and so forth. But we will not be paying real payment or doing real payment, because if you need that, you need to put you need to use the live mode if you want to do it in production. So I will also leave you a comment here. So use Sandbox for testing, and here this value live for production. And like that, you have all the modes that you can use. Also, I will show it to you in the interface. So now let's go back to this PayPal config, and if you click here, it will navigate you to this parameter right here. So it's just to make sure that we correctly configured everything. So now let's move on and generate a new PayPal client ID and client secret. So now, in order to create an application and to get the credentials for our PayPal payment integration, first of all, you need to go to the https developer.paypal.com/dashboard, and you will arrive to this interface. But if you have an account, you can just log in. Otherwise, you need to create a PayPal account in order to enable and to access this interface. So first of all, we see right here that we have the Sandbox enabled. This is the mode we already spoke about. And then we have to, or we can switch it from Sandbox to live and vice versa. But if you want to switch it to live, you need to upgrade your account and you need to pay for that, and so on and so forth. So if you want a real integration or a live environment for PayPal integration, you need to enable this one. Otherwise, you can use Sandbox. First of all, we see here that we are showing default application. So this default application, you have one application by default. Otherwise, you can see all the list of the applications that you created in here. So now let's move on and create a new app. So in this menu, App and Credentials, click on it. Here it says that we are viewing the Sandbox API credentials, so also we can switch to the live if we have a live one. Otherwise, we will see all of them. So as I mentioned, by default, we have this default application with this client ID and client secret. Also, this is one application that I created before. And now let me show you how you can create a new application. So on this button right here, Create App, click on it and you will have this pop-up. So here, first of all, you need to provide the application name. So let's call it PayPal Demo. And then you need to select the type. When you are using a sandbox, it doesn't matter. You can keep it as a merchant and even our platform. And here you have your automatically assigned sandbox account. So you will have only one. So it will be used by default. And then click on Create App. Okay, so here, okay, it says app name cannot contain PayPal. Let's say App Demo and then Create App. So now the application is created, and as you can see here, we have this client ID which we can copy to our clipboard, and also you have this secret key. So also you can show it and copy it. But I need to mention something. Don't use these credentials because I will be deleting this application just after recording this course. So if you use this client ID and client secret, it will not be working for you. So here we see that we have this client ID and client secret. And also if you go down here, you will see also the information. So the sandbox URL is this one, sandboxpaypal.com. And also you have this business email, and you have also one password which you can show and you can copy. And now let me show you something important. So I will go back to apps and credentials. And here I see my app demo, and then now I want to go to the home page. Within the home page here, let's select our app demo and then click on this sandbox accounts. So within this sandbox accounts, you will see that you have a sandbox account. So this one is a business account and this one is a personal one. When we finish the implementation, we will be using, for example, this account right here in order to perform the payments. But before that, let me show you how you can update this. So here it was SB something like this, and then it was personalexample.com, but I was able to update this one. So click on these three buttons and then view and edit account. And then you can click on edit and you can change the name, last name. You can also change the email ID and also the password, because by default you have an auto-generated one, and you also have the country and have everything. When you're done, just click on save or cancel. Also, you see the funding right here that you have, for example, this balance, and also you have the settings. So if you want to preview sandbox payment before they are completed, this means that when you perform a payment, you should validate it in here, but we don't need that. Also here we can see the credit card assigned to this PayPal account, and the expiration date is March 2028. All right, so we can close this one. Now we have all the information that we need. We can also go back to these app credentials, and now let's go ahead and copy these values and put them into our application. So I will copy the client ID, and here in the application YAML, I will just paste it. The same for the client secret, and also paste it here. So now we have our client ID and client secrets, and also we are using the mode sandbox. So our configuration is ready. Now let's move on and implement the payment using PayPal. Let's create our PayPal payment service. So I will create a new class. I will call it PayPal service, and I will move it to a package. I will call it PayPal. And this one, it's a service, as I mentioned. And also we will need the required Args constructor annotation from Lombok in order to inject our dependency. And first of all, we will need to inject our private final API context, the configuration that we created, and let's call it API context. Now let's start implementing the methods or the payment methods. First of all, we need to create a method that will perform or that will create the payment. So we will create a public, and then we have payment. So this is going to be the return type. It's payment from com.paypal.api.payments, and then let's call it create payment. And this create payment needs a bunch of parameters. So first of all, we need a double, which is the total amount that we need to pay. And then we have string currency. Then we have the payment method. So let's call it method. And then we have the intent. I will explain each element of this. Then we have description. So this is the payment description. So like it's the description text that we want to pass for this payment. And finally, we have two other parameters, which is the cancel URL. So the cancel URL means after or if the user cancels the payment, where we want to redirect our user. And finally, we have our string, which is success URL. The first thing that we need to do is to create an object of type amount. And the amount is always from the com.paypal.api. Let's call it amount equals new amount. And then for the amount, we need to set first of all the currency. What is the currency that we want to use, which is the currency that we get as a parameter. And then we need to set the total. And now for this total, it's of type string. So I need to do some formatting. So it's going to be string.format. And then we know that this format method, we can pass whether a list of arguments, or we can also pass a locale. So first of all, let's pass the locale because it depends on the locale you are using, and always the format should be in this format. So let me explain this. Assuming that we want to pay $9.99, for example. So when we are using the US locale or the US dollar to pay, the format should be 9.99. For example, if we are using euros, it should be 9.99 euros. All right, and this is why we need the locale in here. So the string.format will be able to correctly format the value. So here, first of all, we can do locale dot. So if you have only one fixed locale, you can, for example, use locale.us or locale.fr or de or and so on and so forth. Otherwise, we can make it dynamic depending on the currency. So here we can say for language tag, and our language tag is the currency. And now we need to format our value. So first of all, it's the format, and then the value that we want to format. And here the format, it's %.2f, because we have a float, or we want to convert it to a float, and we have the dot right here. And 2f means that we have, or we might have, two numbers after the comma. All right, so after the format, we need to create a transaction. So we have a transaction object here, transaction equals new transaction. And then the transaction, we need to set the description, which is our description that we get as a parameter. And then for the transaction, we need, of course, the amount, which is the amount we just created. After that, we need to create a list of transactions. So I will create a list of transaction. I will call it transactions equals a new array list. And then all I need to do is to add, because within one payment we can have multiple transactions. So here I will do add and then transaction. After the transaction, we need to pass, or we need to tell PayPal about the payment information. For example, what is the payment method that we want to use. So here we need an object of type payer. Let's call it payer equals new payer. And then we have payer.setPayment method. And the payment method is the method that we also get as a parameter, and the method means whether we want to pay with the PayPal. It means that it will be deducted from the PayPal balance or credit card, and so on and so forth. After that, we need to create an object of type payment, and this payment equals new payment. And then we need to set the information or a bunch of information for this payment. So first of all, we have payment.setIntent, which is the intent we got as a parameter. And then we need to set the payer, which is the payer we just created. And finally, we need to set the transactions. .set transactions, and then we have transactions. So now, finally, which is the final object that we need to create, is the redirect URLs. So we need to tell PayPal what are the redirect URLs that we want to use in case of success payment, or in case of cancel, or in case of error. So here I will create an object called redirect URLs equals new redirect URLs, and all I need to do is to set the cancel URL and the success URL. So the success URL is called return URL. So this means where I want to redirect my user after the payment is successful. So finally, I need to say payment.set redirect URLs and this redirect URL object that I just created. And the last step now, all I need to do is to return payment.createPayment. And then to create the payment, I need to pass the API context, which holds all the information for the OAuth2, which is the client ID and the client secret. And also we see here that this create might throw an exception. And as you can see, it can throw a PayPal REST exception. So let's add this exception to the method signature. And that's it. So now we have our create payment method. After creating a payment, then we need to execute this payment. This means that when we perform on the UI later on, when we select pay with PayPal, and then we confirm and we log in and we say pay now, then we need to execute that payment. So this is that's the step called create payment. And then we need to execute that payment. So what we need to do is to create a public payment method. And let's call it execute payment. And this execute payment will need a string payment ID, which is, we can get it from here or from this payment object. And then we will need a string payer ID. So all this information, we will be able to get them once we create our payment. And then what we need to do is to create a payment object, payment equals new payment. And then we have payment.setID. So we need to set the ID of the payment. So which is payment ID. And then we need to create a payment execution object. So let's call it payment execution equals new payment execution. And this payment execution will take or will hold the information of the payer, and then set payer ID, which is the payer ID. And finally, we need to return this payment.execute. And then we have, or we pass our API context. So this is the authentication and then the payment execution. And of course, this execute will also throw a PayPal REST exception. So we need to add this one to this method. So our PayPal service or our payment service is ready to use now. Now let's move on and create our controller, which will consume all this information. Now, after creating our PayPal service, let's create the controller. So here I will create a new class and I will call it payment or PayPal controller. So this one is going to be a controller. It's not a REST controller because we will be using MVC and we will be using Thymeleaf, and everything will be within the same application. Then we have the required args constructor, and after that we need to inject our PayPal service. So private final PayPal service, and let's call it PayPal service, for example. Now let's move on and create the different methods that we will be using in this controller. Now let's create the first method that will return the index view. So it will be a get mapping, and then we will give it slash, and it will return a public string, and let's call it home. So then simply we need to return index, and this index will represent the web page or the index.html page that we will be creating later on. So this is our index page. Now let's move on and create the rest. In this step, we will create the create payment method that will perform the PayPal creation or the payment creation. So it will be a post mapping, because we will have a form later on that will redirect us to this view. So it will be payment/create. And then we will need a public, and we will be using a redirect view object, and here it's from Spring Framework Web Servlet.view, and let's call the method create payment. For now, we will leave it without parameters, and later on I will show you how we can get all the informations from the web form that we will be creating. So here I will surround this one with a try and catch. And for the catch, we want to catch the PayPal REST exception, and let's call it E. And in case of exception, for example, let's log here. So I will inject an SLF for J from Lombok, and here I can do log.error, and then I can print the stack. So here I will just add a message, error occurred, and then it will be our error. So for now, this one is highlighted because we don't have an exceptional treatment, but it will be the case right now. So first of all, I will create a string cancel URL. So this will be the cancel redirect URL, and also I will have the success URL. So for this cancel URL and success URL, it will be HTTP ://localhost and then 8080, which is the default port of our application. And then we have payment, which is this controller right here. And then we will create later on a method, we will call it cancel, which will redirect us to the cancel view. I will just copy this value and paste it here, and then it will be payment/success for the success URL. Then I will create a payment object, which is from the com.paypal.api.payment. I will call it payment equal our PayPal service.create payment. And to create this payment, so for now I will just provide static values. So the total, let's say it's 10, and then we can use USD as currency, and the payment method is PayPal. Then we have the next one, which is the intent, which is a sale, because we are performing a sale. And then we have the description, let's say payment description, just to keep it simple. And then we need to provide the cancel URL and success URL. So here we see that we have our payment, and once the payment is performed or once the payment is created, we need to extract the approval link. And the approval link is once the payment is totally performed on PayPal platform. So then we need to redirect the user whether to this cancel or to this success URL. And in order to do that, so I will create a loop, and for links, so the links is also an object coming from the com PayPal API payment, and let's call it links, and these links are from the payment. So when we do payment.get links, it will return a list of links. So here I will just use this simple loop. We can use stream, and we can filter and so on and so forth, but we will just use a simple loop, and then we will do if links.getRel dot equals, because when the payment is successfully performed, so we will have one link called approval_URL, and if we have this, or if we have this link among the links that we'll get from the payment, what we need to do is just to return a new redirect view. And this redirect view means that we want to redirect our user to the link.gethref. So this is going to be the link that we will be redirecting the user. So it will be whether the cancel or the success depends on what the user will be performing. So I will just copy this one, and after the catch, I will paste it here. And instead of this, I will just redirect the user to /payment/error. So if we don't have a cancel or a success, this means that automatically the payment was not successfully done. So it's the error case. And in this case, we have to redirect the user to /payment/error. So now let's move on and implement this success method. Now, after redirecting the user to the success, once the payment or the payment was successfully created, we need to execute that payment. So this is the success case or the happy case. So I will create a get mapping, and this get mapping will have the path payment/success, and then we have public and then string and then payment success. So this payment success will have a request param, which will be called payment ID. So this one is automatically provided by the PayPal REST API. So we just need to call it this way, payment ID. And then it's going to be a string payment ID. And also we need another request param, and this one will be the payer ID. And also we need to call this one payer ID. And that's it. So now we have all the parameters that we need. Let's move on and implement this method. So again, we need our try catch block. And here again, we will catch the PayPal REST exception. Let's call it E. And in case we have an exception, let's just log it as we did in here. So just copy this one and paste it in here. And then finally, we will return our payment success view. So later on, we will create a payment success.html page, and automatically Spring will be redirecting us to this view. Now inside this try block, we will create another object of type payment. Let's call it payment equals PayPal service dot execute payment. And to execute the payment, we need to pass the payment ID and the payer ID. And once we execute this payment, we will be able to access an attribute or a property called state. So I will do if payment dot get state equals. So when it's approved, we will get a state called approved. And in this case, we will do the same thing as in here. We need to redirect the user to the payment success view. And that's it. So this is the payment success. Now let's create this payment cancel endpoint. After the payment success, I will create another endpoint, which it's going to be a payment, a get mapping, and then it will be payment/cancel, as we mentioned in here. So here you need to match the URL. So it should be /payment/success in order for Spring to successfully and correctly redirect the correct view. So this one, it's going to be simply a string method, and let's call it payment cancel. No parameters, and all we need to do is to return the view that we want to display. So let's call it payment cancel. And that's it. Now we still only need to implement this payment error page, and that's it. Finally, we need to implement the payment error page. So I will just duplicate this method, and here instead of cancel, it will be error. And instead of payment cancel, we will create a page. We will call it payment error. So that's it. Now we are done with our controller. And here we need to rename the method. And then we are done with this PayPal controller. And now we can move on and create the UI. Now we will create the view that will be rendered by this method. So when we access our application on localhost 8080, it will be automatically rendering this index.html page. And this view right here, it should be part of the resources and then templates. So here, if I right click and create new file, call it index.html. You will see, first of all, automatically now our IntelliJ is able to locate this one. And if you control click it or command click it, so it will navigate you to this index.html. Now let's provide the HTML code for this index.html. So first of all, we have a doc type, which is HTML. And then we have our HTML tag. And within this HTML, we need to tell our web page that we want to use Thymeleaf. So it will be XMLNS, so XML namespace, and then comma th for Thymeleaf equals, and then we need to provide the Thymeleaf URL. So it will be http://thymeleaf. So this one is to point or to tell that we want to use Thymeleaf as a renderer. And then we will have our head, and inside this head we can have a meta tag. So this one, we can say that we want to use the charset UTF-8. So this is for the encoding, and also we can provide a title right here. So here we can call it PayPal integration. So this will be the title of our web page. And then we need to provide, or we want to use Bootstrap just to make our interface look more beautiful. So I will just copy paste the code right here. So for the Bootstrap, we are using the CDN, and the CDN you can get it from this place. So to get the CDN or the Bootstrap from the CDN, all you need to do is to go to the web page called getbootstrap.com. So getbootstrap is one word, .com. And then if you scroll a bit down, you will see include via CDN. So CDN is for Content Delivery Network. And all you need to do is to copy this one and also copy this one if you need also JavaScript. So just copy this and then paste it where I did. So this is the bootstrap.css and this is the bootstrap.js. So now we have our Bootstrap ready to use. Let's move on and create the body. So we will have a body, and inside this body, we will create a div, a block, and we will give it class container. And inside this container, we will have an h1. So this is going to be the title of our web page. So this h1, it will be PayPal payment integration. This is the title, and let's give it some style. And then class, we can give it text center and margin top 5. So to give it some space from the top. Now let's create a simple button that will redirect us to the PayPal. So here we need a form, and then in this form we have our method, which is post, because as we mentioned in our controller, we want to have a post mapping, and then we need to add an action. So the action is /payment/create. And as you can see, this one is a post from the PayPal controller. And also we can give this one a class. So margin top 5, for example, we can give it also a card, and we can give it some spacing to have some padding to have some inner spacing. So within this form, first of all, I will make it easy, or I will make it simple, and then we can add a form and we can make our payment dynamic. So all I will do right now is create a div block. And this div, I will give it a class. So it will be a dflex. So to display flex, and then justify content center. So I want my content to be centered, and then simply I will create a button, and this button will have the type submit to be able to submit this form. And then I will give it a class btn and then btn primary. You can get, or you can learn all this from the Bootstrap website. And then the text, it will be pay with PayPal. All right, so this is our index page. So this is the first implementation, and then we will add a form, and we will have our inputs and so on and so forth in order to have some dynamic form. So after the index.html, let's create the second view, which is the payment success. So as we can see here, we have this payment success. I will just copy the name to avoid mistakes and typos, and I will create a new file, and I will call it paymentsuccess.html. And then I can just copy all this code from here, paste it in here, and now let's do some cleanup. So we will need the head. so we can keep it. And inside the body, we don't need the form, so we'll just cut this one. I will remove the form and leave this button right here. Also, we need this one, so let's say payment success as a title, and then we will have our deflex, and also we can give this one a margin top 5, and then we will have an A instead of a button, and we don't have this type. We can keep the class button primary, so let me move it or inline it like this, and this one we will call it back to home, for example. And of course, within our A attribute, we need the href, so we want to navigate to the slash, so we want to go back to the home page. So this is the payment success. Now let's move on and implement the cancel payment. For the payment cancel, it will be exactly the same thing. So we will just duplicate this one and I will call it payment cancel. And inside this payment cancel, let's update it right now. So I will just go here and it will say payment cancelled. And the same will have the button to go back to the home page. So that's it. So the payment cancel and the payment success are only pages to display if the payment was successful or the payment was cancelled by the user. Also, you can improve and you can add so many other features and views depending on your application. And finally, let's implement the error page so we can copy whether the payment cancel or the payment success. And let's duplicate it and call it payment error. I will show you later on how you can make sure that you did not make a typo. So I will make this one full screen, and here ensure that you are modifying or updating the payment error.html. So here I will say just payment error, and also I can say text danger. So just to make it red, and in here I can also add a p tag, and this one I can give it class text center, and also a margin top 3 just to have some space from this title right here. And I will say just an error occurred during the payment, please try again. So it's just a simple message, and this one let's fix the typos. And that's it. So also we will have the button to go back to the home page and perform the payment once again. So now we have our views. Let me show you how you can check that everything is working fine and that you did not did not make a typo while typing these names. To make sure that you did not make a typo, here, for example, in the index, you should see this this text right here, not highlighted and not underlined with yellow. And also, if you type Command or Control and click on it, it should navigate you to the index.html. Same thing here for the error page. And also here for the success, we see here that we are navigating to the payment success, and also the same to the payment cancel and the payment error page. So this is a simple way to check. Otherwise, as I mentioned, try to avoid typos, and this name should be exactly the same name as the HTML templates. Now our application is almost ready. Let's start it and test it. Now let's start our application and test it. So here we see that the application is already started. Now let's open our browser and let's navigate to the localhost 8080, and we see here that we have this PayPal payment integration. And now when I click on Pay with PayPal, it will redirect me to the PayPal web view if I'm connected, so it will be directly the payment page. Otherwise, PayPal will ask me to log in. So now after clicking on the button Pay with PayPal, we see that we are redirected to this web page, login into PayPal, and we need to enter our email address, which is this one, the sandbox that we created, and then next. And also, since my password is already saved on the browser, so I will be able to automatically log in. So I will click on login, and now we see that I'm redirected automatically to this payment page. and we see here ship to John Doe, which is the name that I chose for my sandbox, and this is just a random address. And here we see that by default, since we chose the method PayPal, so it's by default it's the PayPal balance, and here we see the price. So here it's 10, and then we have this price because it includes taxes and so, or we can also choose to pay with Visa. Otherwise, we can click on continue to review order, or we can cancel and return to test store. So let's first try this cancel. I will click on cancel. Now we see that we are automatically redirected to this payment canceled. And now let's go back home and perform this again. And here we will see that we will not be redirected to the login page, since we are automatically logged in because the login was saved. And here you see it in French because my default configuration for the PayPal account was French and I did not change it. So now let's click on continue and pay the command or the order. So now after confirming the command, we see that we are redirected to this error page, and let me explain to you why. So you see right here in this link, I will just move it to our IntelliJ, and I will create a scratch text so you can see it better. So here, this is the redirect URL, and then we see that here we have our parameter payment ID, which we are expecting in our payment or PayPal controller. So here, if we go to this payment or to this endpoint, we see that we have a payment ID and also we have a payer ID. So let's check if we have everything as mentioned. So the payment ID is correct, and then we have this token, and then you see right here that the payer ID starts with a capital case and the ID is 100% capital. So we need to change this. We need to match these request parameters. Otherwise, and as you saw in the web page, it's not working. So let's restart our application, and now let's go back to our web browser, and simply we can just refresh this page, and we see we have PayPal success. So now let's do it again. Now I will pay with PayPal. Since I'm logged in, I will be automatically redirected to the payment page, and here I will just continue, and everything is going, and now we have our PayPal success. So in case, for example, we provide a wrong ID or a wrong client ID, we will go to the error page. So let's try to do that. So in here, let's just open application.yaml file, and for example, I will just put something wrong in here, restart the application, and now let's try to perform a payment again. So return back to home, pay with PayPal, and we see that we have this error page and we have error occurred during payment, please try again. So this is the case of the error, and now we can go back home, and then let's bring back what we did. So Command Z to bring the client ID and the client secret, and now that's it. So the next step is I want to have a form here. I want to have a form right here where I can, for example, type the amount and also select a locale and select a description and so on and so forth, and then pass them so we can see everything dynamic on the payment page. Let's go back to our index.html page, and inside this form, let's add some attributes or some input fields. So I will create a div, and then I will give it a class, so margin bottom 3, just to give it some space, and then I will have a label, and this one, it will be payment method. So this payment method, it will have a default value PayPal, and then this label, I will give it a class form label. This one is from Bootstrap, and also I will give it for. So this label is for method, and the method will be the input that I will be creating right now. So input ID equals method, and then the type is text. I will give it also a class, so it's form control, and of course an ID equals method. So the ID is important. The ID and the name are really important when you work with Thymeleaf. So I will just break this line right here so you can see everything. So the ID and the name, they should be the same. And here I want to give it a value. It will be PayPal by default, and I will make it read only. So I don't want to update this input. So I will just copy paste this one once again. And the second one will be the amount. So we have the amount right here, and it's going to be amount and amount again here, and I will give it the same name and ID. And the value, let's say for example, it's going to be 10.0, and this input type can be of type number, and we can also define the step, and it's not a read only. So let's just leave it as it is. I will duplicate it again for the currency. So here it will be currency, and then we will not have an input, but we will have a select. So it will be select, and then let's give it a class, again form control, and an ID currency, and of course the same name currency. Now let's create some options. So the first one, or the first option group, or sorry, not option group, but the first option will have the value USD, for example, for US dollar. And here we can say this one is automatically selected. So this means it will be the default one. And let's say USD. And for example, let's also add euros. And here it will be euros. And then for example, GBP for Great Britain, pound. And this one we don't need it selected. Also, we don't need it here. And now we will also GBP. Also, you can add more currencies right here. And now we can keep this submit button. Then I will copy again this one and add a new input for the description. So here it will be description, ID description, and so here it's duplicated, and the name also description. And this one is of type text. And for example, let's say PayPal, or let's even leave it without the value, and that's it. So also let's maybe clean up and remove these duplicated IDs. And now we are done with our UI. So let's move on and see what are the changes required on the controller side. Now let's go to our PayPal controller, and we go to this create payment, the first method. And now we need to add a bunch of request params, which are the amount, the method right here, amount, and then the currency. So let's say request param and method, and then it's a string method. Then I can duplicate it twice, and the second one is amount, and then string amount, and finally it's gonna be the currency, and here it's currency. So this amount should be this amount right here. So I will just do double dot value of, and then amount, and the currency, it will be just currency. The method, it also can be, or we can change it in here. You can also add the description and the intent. So let's also add an input for the description. So this one, it will be description, and then we need comma right here, and description in this place. All right, so now we have everything set up. So the intent, let's keep it sale, it's okay. Otherwise, you can also add an input for that. So now let's run and test the application. So now let's start the application and test it again. So let's go back to our browser, and here we have our new interface. So here we see that we have our payment method, which is a read only, so we cannot update it. And the amount, let's say that we want to pay 89, and let's say it's in euros, and here let's say some description, and then pay with PayPal. And now I'm still connected, so that's why I'm automatically redirected here. And now we can see that this amount is in euros. And if I go back, or I cancel this one, I go back home, and for example, let's say 33, and this currency. Okay, so we just forgot to rename this one to currency, so we'll do it later on. And then let's do pay with PayPal, and we will see that the currency now has changed or will be changed. So I think with PayPal, it automatically converts it to the default currency, which is configured. But as you can see here, you see that the conversion rate is €1 equals this one in pounds. Let's confirm this one. And now let's go back to home. Thank you so much for watching this video, and that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope now you're able to integrate PayPal within your web applications. So again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, check the videos in my YouTube channel, and of course, share this video with your friends and colleagues, and let's spread the knowledge together. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.